cloud computing, there is an easy delivery of computing services like servers, storage, databases, networking, and software over the internet. Companies can leverage the economics of scale of major companies like AWS, of course, GCP, and Azure to get access to enterprise-grade infrastructure and services without having to build and maintain it themselves. Supabase, on the other hand, is an open source alternative to Firebase that provides many similar backend as a service features for building modern applications. And just like Firebase, Supabase is built on top of cloud infrastructure. Its database runs on managed Postgres on AWS, and contents is stored in S3 buckets. A key feature of Supabase is it enables developers to focus on building an application logic and UI without having to worry about setting up and managing the underlying database, storage, and other backend infrastructure. So Supabase provides ready-to-use APIs, SDKs, and auto-generated APIs to make it easy to connect front-end to the backend services. Overall, Supabase demonstrates how cloud computing has revolutionized modern application development. The heavy lifting of infrastructure management is handled by the cloud provider, while Supabase adds APIs and tools that make it simpler and faster to build full-stack apps. Companies can leverage the power of the cloud to quickly build and scale complex applications without large upfront investments. And that's more or less in line with what we'll do today, as I would like to show you how to work with Supabase and of course get you up to speed if you've never had the opportunity to do so. So let's jump right in. Well, hello everyone and welcome to my channel. So today I would like to introduce you to Supabase. In case you're not familiar with it, Supabase is an open source alternative to Firebase that makes it incredibly easy to build full stack web applications. So with Supabase, you get a couple of things out of the box. You get authentication, real-time database, storage, and so much more. And in this comprehensive guide, what I would like to do is to give you a quick introduction, and of course I would try to touch up some of these perks that we get out of the box from Supabase. I will try to show you almost everything you need to get started, so you can really build applications super fast and easily, and actually not having to worry about the underlying architecture. So what I'm going to do, like if you look over here, I created a solid app. I'll try to use this application to set up everything we need, and again, like I said, we'll touch up every of these aspects of Supabase that I think you would be needing. And of course, like I said again, we'll go through authentication, we'll go to real-time databases, how to listen and subscribe to events, and those events could of course be inserts, like the basic CRUD application, CRUD processes you would want to perform on the database. And aside that, of course, we also can listen to auth processes, and that could be user sign in, sign out, and whatever the case may be. And without further ado, I would like to jump right in so we can get started right away. So if you look over here, I've just created a new solid, so I'm working with solid.js. And yeah, if you're familiar with React, picking up solid.js should not be a problem for you. So they're pretty much similar. So, but what I've done here is basically just that this bare bone application. If you look here, you see there's really nothing much going on. We have just this like welcome message you get, more or less telling you edit the app.tsx file to start working, and yeah, of course. So, and what I'm gonna do is to maybe get rid of all of this, and so we can actually start working with this. And what I can do actually is to maybe add this form. But before we get to this, I would just show you how we can set this whole thing up, and so you can also understand how easy it actually is to get started. So what I would like to do is I will come over here and create a folder, and I will name this API. And here I'm going to try to define almost everything we would need when it comes to working with all of this, all of the features that we get from Supabase right out of the box. So I will create a file here, and I can call this base.tsx. I'll create a file here and I'll name it base.tsx. And of course, I would have to install Supabase, and to do that, all I have to do is to just run this command npm install and Supabase, just like this. And now I should have this installed. Just give that a couple of minutes, and now everything should be fine once again. I start the application one more time. Everything looks good. And now here I can import what I just created, what I just installed. So create client from Supabase. And what I might want to do here is to create a class, a base class more or less. So with this I can set up every of the configuration that I need regarding working with Supabase, and then I have every of these other resources inherit this class, and then I don't have to repeat myself all the time. Okay, so one method I would actually like to create here would be, I can call this get client. So this is going to basically return a Supabase client with the required configuration. And before we do that, what I would want to do is to take you over to Supabase and show you how we can, of course, get this all set up, retrieve our token, and then we can actually jump right in. So to get started, what you need to do, of course, is to head over to supabase.com, and if you don't have an account already, you can create a new one. And for prototyping, you can, of course, the free plan is more than enough for whatever it is you might be wanting to do. And then, of course, what you can do is to create a new project. And if you look here already, I have a couple of projects created, and if I come over here, you can see I have 2 projects created. But what you would need to do, of course, it's really pretty straightforward. A couple of clicks, you create a new project, and then you head over to API, and then you would get the 2 things that are really important for us would be, one, this project URL, as you can see over here, and the next one, of course, will be the project API keys. And so pretty straightforward. Head over to supabase.com, create an account, create a new project, then head over to API from project settings, copy the project URL as well as the project API keys, and that's all you need to follow along with this tutorial. So once you have that set up, what you would want to do is to come back over here from where we left off, and then in our get client function here, would want to return this create client that we imported over there. And then we provide 2 things. One will be Supabase URL, as you can see, which is the project URL, and the next would be Supabase key, which of course the API key that I showed you. And of course I would add my own URLs, but again I would not want this, of course, to be visible, because again I would not want the keys to be compromised. And so it should look something like this. So this would be your Supabase URL, and the next one would be, of course, your API key, and that's all you need to set this up. And once we have this base class, what I would really want to do now is to go ahead and start to set up every other thing we need. So we would start with authentication, more or less. So I can come over here, create a new file, and I call this auth.tsx. And what I would want to do here is to create a class, and I can call this user API handler, something like this, and it will extend, or what did we name it? So it was API handler. So API handler. We want to extend this class, and so we set up our class. For now, the constructor would not really have much, so I would leave it as this for now, because of course the class that we are extending, we for now doesn't need any additional parameters to instantiate it, so there is no need to. But we'll leave this here. Of course, it's handy should that change in the future. And yep, other than that, I would like us to create a couple of functions. So we'll have to create a couple of async functions. I can call this create user, and this would take a user, and I would of course define what that user would look like. And so what should happen here is we simply call our we have this sign up function. So all we need to do here is await. You can say this.get client. Client, of course, we created in our roots in our base class, and then auth, and then sign up. And sign up. That's really it. And then now we have to provide a couple of parameters. So the first would be, of course, email. And maybe before I even proceed, I would like to define this user, what it should look like. So to make things easy, so I can define a user model here. And maybe I can also, in the roots, I define a folder called models. And then inside of it, I can have one file. I call this auth. And then here, I would like to export a user model. We just export type user model, and I'll give it some flesh. So I have an ID of type string. I would like to have username. Of course, it should be a string, and first name. First name will of course also be a string. Last name would be a string. And what else do I need? I can say email. It's maybe, and I also say password. For now, I'm gonna leave this as this. Of course, there is still a couple of improvements we could do here, but I'll leave this as this for now. So I would like to type this again so it helps me. So user model, so we have that, and now we can say email would be user.email. And so of course, to create a new user, we also need the password. So this will be user.password. And so I think yes. And now I can add all our additional parameters. And maybe what I would do now is basically, for now, we'll just dump everything else. I can just dump the user for now. It should not be. That's not a list. And here we need data. And then here I can dump every other thing I have about the user. And that's all. And then this function should return two things. So I can destructure it like this. So I get back data and error. And now what I can do here is I can say if error, I simply return the error. Otherwise, I return data. And now I have to inspect the types that is returned. So this actually returns two things. So one is the user session, and of course the actual user that was created. And maybe what I can also do is to maybe define a type that would look similar to this. And maybe I can also define that in here. So I define type, and I can call this user data. So the first would be user, and this user should of course come from Supabase. So here I can let me see if I get IntelliSense. Yes, I get IntelliSense. Awesome. And so this user can be, of course, the actual user or nothing. So for now, I can just put like this, user or null, and the next one would be session. So session also would come from Supabase. Okay, something like this. And then if we come back here, I can now, of course, maybe define my return type. Of course, this should be a promise. And the promise either return user data, or what is the type of this error? So auth error. So I guess this also comes from Supabase. Auth error. So like this. And that's really all the code we need to create a user. That's really it. That's one beautiful thing about Supabase, that it makes it a lot easier. And of course, you get all of this out of the box just so that you can focus on the business logic, and then they try to abstract away all these other aspects of developing your application that you more or less would not really want to care about. And so with that, we can already create a user. So I would like to create a new function, and I'm gonna call this sign in. And of course, it's still gonna be an async function. And then for now, so of course with Supabase, it comes with the whole shebang, like when it comes to authentication, or how you would want to manage your users. So aside from signing in with username and a password, you can of course sign your users in with SSO single sign-ons, or you can of course also use OTP, and you can also, so basically you also get user identity federation, more or less. So you can also sign your users in with your Google account, LinkedIn account, Gmail, whatever the case may be, Yahoo, and that's really like the flexibility you get. But for now, I am going to focus on sign-ins using like a username and a password. And for that, I would require an email, which would be a type string, of course, and the password, which would be a string. Now, of course, one thing, as you can already guess, we could do here, of course, is to hash the password, but that's not really the focus of this video anyways. So to sign the user in, pretty straightforward. We get the client again from the base, and we call auth, and now we say sign in with password, this one. And it takes a couple of things. So of course it takes the email, and it takes the password. And that's really all we need to sign in a user. And again, we get two things back, which we can destructure like this. We get data and error. And if I hover over this again, this is even way more. So what I can do is maybe also define a data type for this, because again, this session, of course, is also something that could be useful, of course, when you would want to manage user sessions, maybe refresh the tokens and stuff like that. And so I will also want to store this after a user signs in. And so what I can do also is maybe I come over here and see what that's actually looked like. So I had a user, a session, and weak password. So I can define a type here and say export type. I can call this user sign in data. So I get a user again of type user. I get a session of type session. I said weak pass of type weak password. And now I can import this here. So again, if this error exists, because of course this can either be an error or null, not error or null. So if this error exists, we return error, otherwise we return data. As simple as that. And of course, again, we define our return type, which should be a promise, and this would return our according to users sign in data or auth error. And so let's see what is the error. So color, so this could also be undefined. You know what, I can also make this, just so you're happy. And yeah, that's totally fine. So now we can sign our users in. And what else would we want to do? So we could also maybe sign out, as you already guessed. So it's also going to be an async function. And again, pretty straightforward, like what we did over there. So I can define, so let me define this first and then look at the return type. So this that get client dot auth sign out. And this takes two things more or less. No, actually it doesn't. So, and it returns a promise, which is either error or auth error. So it returns just one thing, which is error. So here I can of course destructure that already, and here I can say const. We destructure that, so here would be error. And so here I can simply just return this error actually. And of course here I again need to define the return type. So else error or no. I think that's it. Pretty straightforward. And that's all we need to do to assign out a user. And what I might want to do is to maybe define a couple of more functions, just so we can have the whole auth logic all together. So I can define a function for requesting password reset, and this function is going to take an email which of type string, and I will define the return type later. And again, the same process, say get client, pretty straightforward, and then auth, and then reset password for email. So it takes two things, email and of course this redirect. So redirect, I would, of course this should be an object, and then redirect to maybe what I can also do is in this our base I can define a redirect URL here. For now I'm not going to instantiate it. Something like this. Maybe I can initialize it here. But for now, yeah, let's leave it for there. I can call this redirect URL to app, something like this. And then here I can just use this here as a redirect URL. But of course, what this would mean is this would be the URL that when a user signs out, the URL to your app where they need to get to. So more or less like your landing page or the sign-in page, whatever the case might be. That is the URL that needs to be supplied here. But yeah, you get the point. And that's it. So maybe we also need to define the return type. So this returns of course a promise that is empty, and an error that could also be null or auth error. And again, you can also define that here. So promise, which would be auth error. No, what is that? Auth error or null. And then here I'm just basically going to destructure what we get back. Again, like you saw, the data can actually be empty. So maybe I only care about the error and I return this error. That's it. There is still a data, but again, if you look over here, you would see that this data can either be null or more or less an empty object. So we don't really care about it. So it's fine. And the next thing, of course, would be to maybe to get the actual user that is logged in. So here you would want to return the user, and again, like before, this is get client .auth gets user, and that's really it. And maybe I can already copy this just so we can be a little bit faster, and I can call this get session, as you can already guess, and this instead of user becomes get session. And maybe also I can copy this again and paste it over here, and I can call this one something like get new session. So this would be what we would use to refresh our session. So I can call refresh session here, and now we can fill this up. So get user, again we need to await this, and we of course can destructure what we get back, and we can hover over this again and then see we get a user response, which of course is a promise. So what I could do is maybe I take the user, doing it of course data. I can actually do it like this, a user, and now I return this user. That's one thing I could do. And here of course this is a promise, and I can get the user from Supabase, or so it's either we get a user or we get null, and that should be fine. So for get session, again something pretty similar, and we can, just to make this as fast as possible, I can again maybe await this, and just so we don't waste so much time, const object, and then we hover over this again, so we get either a session. So I can actually, it's called data and error. So again, data and error, and yeah, what I can also do like before is if this error exists, if this is not null, we return the error, otherwise we return data. And now of course we have to always type this so that whoever would consume this API can have an idea of what we are doing. So it's either it returns this, or of course it returns an auto error. And so data contains session, so I can also do it like this, and then maybe I return session like this. No, okay, I can do it like this. Yep, that's fine. And now the next thing, of course, we'll have to give flesh to this get new session, so that you can of course use this to refresh your tokens, for example. Again, we await this and check the return type, so of course we get our refresh token, and now we can define what we could get back, and we get two things, data or error. And what I can do is maybe destructure this, and no, I don't have to. Let's keep it simple. Again, we say if this error exists, if it's not null, we return error, otherwise we return a couple of things. So what do we have in here? So we have a user and the session, which is really nice. And so I can also maybe return them both. How best can we do this? So we can of course define, and now I'm trying to be as fast as possible just so we don't waste so much time. So we could have something like this, session, and then user of like this, and then we use either we get this or we get out error, and then I can do it like this, zero.session, and the user will be zero.user. So what is the issue again? Are you serious right now? Okay. And that's actually all we would need for now to set up our authentication. So if we look over here, we could create a new user, we could sign the user in, sign him out, so request a new password, and we'll get, of course, gets the actual user that's logged in, and we can, of course, gets the user's current session, or we could refresh that session. And as you can already imagine, this is more or less enough to set up our authentication for our users. This is already good enough. And the next thing I would want to show you, of course, would be maybe I would create a new table file here and call it table.tsx, and in here I would show you more or less how you could, of course, work with the databases on Supabase.